Did you think breath support was going to be easy? Well, you'd be right. Hi everyone, I'm Cornelius of Voice Studio East. When I was first learning how to sing, there was a lot of talk about breath support as the cornerstone of vocal technique, and one word in particular kept popping up in strange corners. That word was appoggio, and it was held up as the holy grail of not only breath support, but vocal technique more broadly. I spent many days and nights scouring the internet, reading one blog after another to learn more about this strange concept, but each time I would walk away more confused than when I started. But one day I met a strange man who showed me a whole other way of thinking about singing. He taught me that I did not have to treat vocal technique as a sacred mystery, but could break it down into very straightforward concepts whose interplay gives rise to the complex intricacies of vocal technique. It was this crucial insight that began my journey of vocal discovery. And now, as a seasoned veteran of the vicissitudes of vocal virtuosity, I bring to you the fruits of my endeavor. Okay, enough nonsense. Let us get down to the real meat of the issue. Imagine you have a pressure tank with a valve, and you're trying to get a steady flow of water from it. Now, the way a pressure tank works is that you have water in the bottom and air in the top, often separated by a diaphragm, and you can pump air into the top compartment to increase the water pressure. What happens when you do this? Does it increase the flow of water across the valve? Yes, because pressure is what drives the flow of water. Does it increase the pressure pushing against the valve itself? Yes, when you increase the pressure, the result is an increased pressure. Straightforward. But what this means is that there is no way to control the pressure and flow separately by just pumping air into the top compartment. That will always increase both the pressure and the flow. If you wanted to increase the pressure without increasing the flow, you would have to look at the valve. Namely, you would have to tighten it and only then proceed to pump air into the tank. Likewise, if you want to increase the flow without increasing the pressure, you have to loosen the valve. The pressurized container symbolizes your lungs, and the valve symbolizes your vocal folds. When you tighten your abdomen, you create an upward pressure on the diaphragm, pushing it into the lungs, thus decreasing their volume. This is just the same as what you are doing when you pump air into the top compartment of a pressure tank. And just as with the pressure tank, doing so will increase both the pressure and the airflow. You can adjust these separately by tinkering with the valve, that is, your vocal folds, but you cannot do it with the respiratory system alone. What this means is that the function of your respiratory system can be understood very simply. Namely, you can expand your lungs or compress your lungs. That is literally it. It is entirely a matter of less versus more breath support, with some vocal coordinations requiring less and others requiring more, all depending on how tight your valve is. If you can control how hard you exhale, on a hiss, for example, then you can already do breath support. There is no magic involved and no need to search for a lost art of appoggio. This, by the way, is merely the Italian word for leaning, and there are any number of reasons why an Italian voice teacher might instruct his students to lean. Being a common word, the idea that it must refer to some one specific technique is unfounded. Returning to the pressure tank analogy, we may also observe that the pressure can never rise beyond the level that the valve will contain. If it does, the valve is forced wide open and the pressure will soon dissipate. On the other hand, if the pressure is too low, there will be no flow of water at all. This is especially true with singing, where a certain pressure is needed just to set the vocal folds in motion, which means the pressure is controlled more by the vocal folds than by the respiratory system. we are left with the remarkable conclusion that breath support actually plays a very limited, even trivial role in vocal technique. You need a certain level of it just to set the vocal folds in vibration, but you have been vocalizing all your life, when speaking, when screaming during infancy, etc. So you already instinctually know how to do this, and any breath support beyond that level is just going to result in pushing air and making yourself hoarse. Fortunately, this risk is mitigated by the tendency of the vocal folds to instinctively squeeze together when you attempt a very forceful exhalation. This instinctual squeeze, known technically as the glottal valsalva maneuver, actually does have some uses, especially when it comes to rough vocals and certain types of operatic singing. But for the most part, you will want to avoid using valsalva when singing, or at least avoid excessive amounts of it. This is a substantial part of what is meant by letting go of tension, and should be the focus of your work with the respiratory system when singing, at least until you have reached quite an advanced level of vocal technique. So in short, here is my advice to you. Unless you are working on highly advanced skills, just forget about breath support and instead just try to avoid tensing up. Meanwhile, you can work on singing with a more animated face, more energetic enunciation, snappier onsets, etc., and observe how your body will instinctually respond to provide appropriate levels of pressure, assuming you avoid tensing up, that is. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out my video on stage presence, which will teach you more about how to move when singing, and could even help you loosen up and avoid the glottal valsalva we discussed earlier. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.